Hey guys, it's Ryan from Appleton Lawn Snow Landscaping, and with all the wet weather, we've received a lot of requests for grading changes, and they've had standing water in the basements, things like that. That's certainly something we can do, so I wanted to put together a little video for everyone to show the process that we go through. It's not a real cut and dry thing. There's kind of some interpretation that has to go into it, so I figured we'd start with this, and if anyone has questions, we'd be happy to take phone calls and go from there. So when we start, we're going to come up with a grading plan. So we're going to measure the areas on the house that we're going to be working on, and we're going to make a grid in the yard. So I've measured basically a 10-foot grid throughout the yard, and we're going to pick a point up here and start from here, and then work our way around the yard taking measurements so we can see what areas need work, how much soil needs to be brought in or taken away. So to do that, obviously we're going to measure the house itself and put that on the plan here. Once we've done that, we're going to use a tool, either a transit or this is a neat little level that packs up real tight so we can bring it places. It's very portable. And this is going to do basically the same thing. So I'm going to turn this on, and then we're going to take our, basically zero it out at the highest point of the yard or the highest point around the house, because the goal is to get the water away from the house. So we want to find out where the high points are, take all our measurements, and then figure out where things need to be adjusted. So I'm going to zero this out here. All right, and then I can start taking my measurements. But before we do that, we kind of need to figure out where we want the water to go. So in this circumstance, on this particular house, the water needs to grade from this section, the front. It needs to break away from the house, sloping this way, and then it's going to go towards the front of the property. This side, once the house, or I should say once the water gets past the porch, everything slopes this way, and then it slopes kind of around the swale to the backyard here. So as we're taking our measurements, that's what we're going to take into consideration. Because just because you have all the measurements, it doesn't really mean anything unless you actually know where you want the water to go. Once you know where you want the water to go, you can adjust the grade up or down and then shift the water to the direction that you need. So now we're going to take our first measurement here. I've already got some written down. I'm just going to kind of show you the basics of what we do. So come in here, I'll show you. So it was zeroed out. It was zeroed out at the house. So now we're going to take our measurement here, and we are down about 3 inches and 3 3/4 inches from the house. So then I've already wrote this measurement down, but then we'd go over, write it down in that square on the plan. Then we'll go to our next one, do the same thing. Then we'll hop over to our next one and do the same thing, and do that at each of the spots on the grid that we need to take a measurement. Once that's done, you can kind of get a feel for what needs to happen. So on this particular plan, okay, let's go over here a little less windy here. So on this particular plan, the water in this area is going to go this way, and then it's going to break, and it's going to go this way. The water on the side of the house over here, the water, all this area, the water's going this way, and then the water's breaking, and it's going, following a swale, going this way. So that's when we need to look at each spot and see if there's any issues. A lot of times you can see if there's standing water. That's a dead giveaway, but sometimes there's not. So in this circumstance, here's where we zeroed the grade out. Then from this point to this point, it drops 10.5 inches, but then it goes up here. It goes up, it continues to drop here, but then here it goes back up. So we're at minus 10.5 inches. So what's gonna happen is the water's gonna come here, it's gonna follow this way, and this water here is gonna follow this way, and we're at minus 12 inches here. So the water, because it's higher here, is gonna pool right in this area. So what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to raise the grade around this area here, because we want the grade, so we want to see lower numbers as we get further and further and further away from this point up here. So obviously this point, because it drops quickly to 12, minus 12 inches, but then it goes to minus 10 in, I believe it was 7/8 here, water's not gonna go uphill. So it's gonna puddle here. So then we go back up to the house and we look at some options. Now, in this circumstance, this was the corner of the house that was minus 12 inches, and that's the dot that was minus 10 inches. So this is a low spot. Water's gonna be coming down this way, and if you back up a little bit, you can probably see pretty clearly that the water is gonna run this way and this way. It's all gonna slope this way, including any water from the gutter, and it's gonna pool right here because it's not gonna be able to go uphill. So we're gonna have to raise the grade here. Now that brings some other challenges because we can't go over the siding with soil. So in this circumstance, especially back in that corner, if you look over there, the siding is pretty low. What probably should happen is the level of the siding needs to get raised, and there needs to be put ice and water shield down here and make sure that there's not lumber behind here, because what happens if you bring the soil level up over the sill here, moisture is going to get trapped in between here and there, and you might have rot behind here. So you never want to do that. So in this circumstance, we'll probably have to have the siding brought up, and then from there we can grade everything correctly. Another big thing where people make some mistakes is when they're taking measurements itself, because we can't just plop down the transit and take a measurement right on top of this. The water is going to sift through here and it's going to hit the soil, and that's where it's going to change its direction. So when we're taking our measurement, we need to get all the way down to the actual soil level. So this is where the soil is. This is where the water is going to go. So we need to, there's a good probably 4 inches of mulch here. And if you are going to be taking measurements from the top of the mulch, you could be 4 inches off from where you need to be. So you need to move this away and get down to the soil. And it's the same thing with any kind of landscaping stone, because the water's going to penetrate that and go right down to the soil, and that's where it's going to change its grade and follow the grade of, or its direction and follow the grade of the soil. So next, once we've figured all that out, we still want to get the water, as much of the water away from the house as possible. So we're going to suggest in this case burying downspouts. And if you want to pan to that downspout right there, there's not even a piece on the bottom. So all that water is going to go right down the foundation. So what we're going to most likely do here is pop off these pieces. We're going to trench some pipe into the ground, run it this way, around the wellhead, and down to the backyard where everything slopes to get the water away from it as much as possible. And then we'll go back to the office, look at the plan, come up with how much soil we need, figure out what we need to do, and hopefully get your grading problem taken care of. So that was kind of a quick tutorial on some of the things that we do when we have major grading issues. So if you have any questions, we would be happy to help. Give us a call, 920-779-1081. And again, this is Ryan from Appleton Lawn Snow Landscaping. Thanks.